And I say to them, there's two things that are very, very important. Number one, in this world, we are who we hang out with. The people you associate with, you're going to be judged by the people that you hang with. And of course, they're going to influence you one way or another. Secondly, who you are accountable to in life is going to direct the path that you move on. And I tell them that if you can surround yourself with the right people, and I'm not talking only business-wise, I'm talking about in life, surround yourself with the right people and be accountable to the right people in life.
This is what I tell young people all the time. And as you know, I go into prisons and juvenile halls and we try to educate these young people, get them on the right track. Do you agree with that? Do you have anything to add to that? What's your advice for not only young people, but people in general, to do well in life? Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good and blessed on this end, and as always, we give God all the praise, honor, and glory for that. And I really do mean that. Hope everybody is doing well. We got some tough times going on in this country, but we're going to survive. We're going to make it through, no doubt. And that brings me to today's guest that I'm going to have a sit down with. He is a very dear friend. He is someone I look up to. He's even a mentor in many ways, just watching how he conducts himself, how he is around people, how he is around his family. Very well known to many of you, I'm sure. Patrick Bet-David has a company called Valuetainment, among many other things. He is an entrepreneur, very, very successful, and just a brilliant person to be around. And I value him as a friend. I value him in some ways as a business partner. Things that we've done together and will do together in the future. I told him I wouldn't be surprised if one day either he or his children are running this country, because that's the trajectory that he's on. So I'm sure you know him, dear friend, and without getting into anything further, here's my guest, Patrick Bet-David. My friend, if you remember, I think it was January of 2018 or December of 2018, I get a call from Mario, your right-hand guy, trusted guy, and he says, my boss wants to interview you. And at that point, I had no idea who you were. I was doing a bunch of interviews at that time, and I said, okay. So we set it up in January of 2018. Your crew comes to my house, and you were about an hour and a half or 2 hours late, and I had to go to a church meeting that night, and I kept saying, I gotta go, and they kept saying, no, wait. Anyway, that was the very fateful, eventful meeting that we had, and the first time of many that you interviewed me. I want to ask you this. Why me at that time? I never asked you that question. What drew you to me, and why me?
So, the story is a guy, one of our bookers from Peru who had issues with politics. He calls me, he says, hey, I got a guy you got to interview. I said, why Michael Franzese? He says, I'm telling you, you got to interview this guy. And then I start going through, I'm like, okay, I know who he is, top 50, highest paid, youngest, and, that whole article, I don't know what number you are. You were 33 years old 18. At the time, or 35 years old. It's 1985 or 84, some year like that, the magazine was. 86, yeah. So I said, and obviously my entire life I've been all around watching Godfather 1, 2, Goodfellas, everything with my dad. And in the Goodfellas intro, Mickey Franzese, and he turns around, he looks just like you, So I said, yeah, absolutely. So when I'm flying out to LA, we're staying at Brentwood, it's Christmas. I'm sitting down with Lewis House. I'm sitting with Jordan Belfort, and you're the last interview. Because I said, I'm going to do all the interviews in one day, and I'm going to go spend time Christmas with the family. And the day with you was December 23rd of 18. So we're sitting down with Jordan Belfort. We're in Manhattan Beach. I'm like, guys, we are running late, but I really want to interview Michael. So the team's running over. I said, listen, why don't you guys just go there, set up so we can lock him in? And he knows he's committed and we're committed. So the guys leave early. We send the whole crew over to your place early. They come to you. I finish with Jordan. We get in the car. It's traffic, like typical traffic that we had. December 23rd was a Sunday. Wow. So it's a Sunday. That's right. You're going to church Sunday night. So I'm on my way to your place. We get there. We sit down, and it's the infamous, you have no shoes on. The socks are showing. That's it ended up becoming the biggest controversy. Look at Michael's power play against Patrick. He doesn't even put his shoes on, you know? It's an old school mob strategy he's got. Anyway, so we do the interview. I come back. I'm like, man, what a great conversation. And this was at Newport. We post a video in 2019 because we had taken a break from creating content for 90 days. Every 3 or 4 years, I would take about 2 or 3 months off. This was a season. And we launched it in January, first or second week of January. Next thing you know, Michael, on the cover of worldstar.com is the profile, the thumbnail of the interview. Then everybody got into it. And then it was a whole, different story. I don't know how many views it's got right now, 15, 16 million views. But obviously people were enamored by your story. But it was your presence. It was your demeanor. It was not just an actor. It's somebody that lived in the life, and you weren't acting. This is the life you were in. So it was one of my favorite interviews I ever did when it was you and I sitting down together.
Well, and likewise. So we had a great time, and we struck up a great friendship from that point. And yeah, the controversy over the no shoes, everybody was reading into that. As a matter of fact, some people were calling you disrespectful for not taking your shoes off. It was so crazy.
I would go to a valet. They would say, "How dare you not take your shoes off?" When we went to Michael's house, I'm like, what are you talking about? Didn't take your shoes off.
It was crazy.
But yeah, and I think we're somewhere at 14, 15 million views. I think the only one that's gotten more views was Sammy Gravano.
Sammy got
again.
Sammy got a few more views. And I think Sammy called people out. So that brought people in to see what they were saying about him. So yeah, Sammy got, I think, a couple million more views than yours.
Well, that's okay. I'll give him that one. I give him a few, but I give him that one.
Well,
I think on BuzzFeed, you got a bunch of stuff with 20 million. I think you got quite a lot of views on social.
Yeah, we got a bunch. And, from that point then, I don't know if you had that interest before, but a couple of months later, you did something that I thought was very interesting. And it was a video about, 25 business lessons that you can learn from a mobster. And you started off by saying Godfather 1 and 2, in those 2 movies, everything about business is shown in those 2 movies. And then you went on to list 25, traits or characteristics or things that mobsters do that entrepreneurs should do, would do, or do. And I thought it was really interesting. And you really believe that, huh? You believe you can learn from guys like us?
To say that's an understatement. I think it's a full-on. Bill Maher just the other day was talking about how he thinks Godfather 3 is the most underrated Godfather. Most people don't give a lot of love to Godfather 3. It's always two's the best. But it doesn't matter whether it's in politics, whether it's military, whether it's business. You talk to most Fortune 500 companies, which movie taught you the most about business? I will say the number one most popular movie they're all going to say is going to be Godfather 2, because in business, I got into business, Michael, from an innocent standpoint, because when you go into business, everybody's like, hey, kid, we believe in you. Everybody starts off as a kid. These 40-year-olds are like, hey, kid, you're going to do great in sales. You're going to do this. I'm like, oh, it's awesome. And all these guys are so nice. They're so fantastic. But they're ahead of you. So when somebody's ahead of you, you're not threatened by them, right? Then all of a sudden you get a little closer. Your name is no longer kid, right? They kind of give you a little bit of a different look. There's a little bit of that insecurity look. You see that it's no longer the guards down, relaxed, easy going. Then when you beat some of these guys that maybe taught you a little bit of the business, then the language changes. And then when you get ahead of them, then you hear stuff being said behind closed doors. Then you hear defamation of character. Then you learn about manipulation. Then you learn about divide and conquer. Then you learn about the Machiavelli strategy on how to look good in front of you, but behind closed doors. I think he's a good guy, but I've heard a lot of bad things about him. And you start seeing these types of things happening in business. And I saw that very closely. So I went from being this kid that's like, listen, everybody wants to see you win. Then I realized, no, not really. You took a market share away from people, and they're not happy about it. And they don't wake up every morning hoping for you to win. They wake up every morning hoping for them to win more than you do. You can win a little bit, but not too much to take share away from them. So if you take the criminal activity out of what Godfather is, and you take all the strategy, to sit down, the getting somebody to represent you as an ambassador to go talk on behalf of you and say, hey, here's what they want to do. We're going to make an offer to you and all this other stuff. That's all business. Every single aspect of that is business. So when I think it was, Michael, when I read your book, what was the business book you wrote? An offer you can't refuse?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I read that book, I had all my agents read that book. And if you remember, you're like, I don't know why all of a sudden this book is selling. I had all my guys start reading that book because you have to, I'll give you a story. We started, when I started my insurance company, October of 09, September of 09, if there's one book I listened to on repeat in my car, non-stop, Michael, for 2 years, is 33 Strategies of War. You would sit in my car and people would be like, why are you listening to this? Are we going to war? Or are we going to listen, everything is war. Business is war. And it's on repeat over and over and over and over and over again. Because I'm a small insurance company. How the hell can I compete with these bigger guys that have been around for 40, 50, 60 years? But I'm going to go take market share because I want to compete. And we go from a small agency with 66 agents to 35,000 agents in 49 states with 250 offices nationwide. And we're going from writing 50 policies a month to 10, 15,000 policies a month. They're not happy about that. I had to learn to go to that next level. And then I had all my guys read this book. So again, going back to it, the world you lived in, I've said this to you before, you could have been a Fortune 500 CEO because what you learn in that world is very similar to what happens in traditional corporate, startup, investment capital, all of that that happens in those industries.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's why I wrote the book. And, business is business, whether you're doing it on the street or you're doing it in the boardroom, there's certain things. And obviously you want to do it legitimately. We had an edge sometimes because we were crossing the lines quite a bit, and that's helpful at times, but eventually that'll catch up with you. But, we agree wholeheartedly on that. But let me ask you this, because you've been, I think everybody that's viewing is going to know who you are. You've been wildly successful, Patrick, in everything that you seem to touch turns to gold. And if it hasn't, we don't know about it because everything certainly appears to be that way. But if you had to tell people, what are the 3 or 4 or 5 major strategies or major things that you had to learn that propelled you for this success? Obviously, you're a very determined guy. We know that, and determination is a part of it. But what are the 5 basic things that you really had to master and learn to get as successful as you are?
It's pretty wild. My first 6 businesses went out of business. They didn't work. I was in that $49,000. I was about to go back into the Army. I was in the Army for 2.5 years. I go to the recruiting station for the second time around. And I said, look, if you guys can pay off my debt, I'll go back into the Army. So they said, yeah, we will definitely, you would have to sign up for 8 years or 6 years, but we'll definitely pay off the debt. You can't just sign up for 3 years. We're going to want you for a lot longer. And by the time you ETS, we'll pay off your $49,000 of debt. So I'm sitting there saying, oh my God, if I do 6 years, that'll be roughly 9 years in the military. I would do another 11 years to retire. I would have retired at 38, which is 5 years ago. That's a fantastic strategy. This close of going into the Army because nothing was working out for me. When I went back in business, one of the things I quickly realized, the traditional philosophy of you got to outwork all your peers. It's not enough. I know a lot of people that work very, very hard. They make good money. I mean, if you work hard, you're not going to starve. That's for sure. But if you work hard, that doesn't mean you're going to make it to the top of doing great things in business. So then the second thing for me was you got to out improve your peers. Okay. So now if I outwork you and I out improve my competitors, I'm going to be able to get to the top 10% of any industry. If I outwork, out improve, I'll be in the top 10%. But then that's still not enough. So I started reading all the books. I'm like, I'm going to be obsessed. Everything's going to be about books. Everyone's going to parties. I'm reading 3 books. I'm reading a finance book. I'm reading a business book. I'm reading a negotiation book. I'm reading all this stuff. But that's not enough. So then third one was, okay, so I'm willing to outwork. I'm willing to improve. The third one was every time I would do business with a guy and then all of a sudden like, oh my God, how did I lose to that guy? How did I lose to her? They had better strategies than you. So outwork is not enough. Out improve, you'll get into top 10%, but I got to learn how to out strategize. That puts me in the top 5% of my industry if I have better strategies. Now, if you want to be in the 1% of 1%, The last one that gave me a lot of confidence, Michael, was the following. One time I'm at an event and I'm 28 years old. This girl gets on stage and she starts talking, you know, because it was a very competitive environment. She starts saying, we're going to do this. Patrick Bet-David cannot compete with us, and we're better, and we're this, and we're that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I got up and I said, listen, I have to tell you something. You will never be able to beat us in business. And I'll explain to you why. But I'm not going to say it to you today. I'll tell you in 15 years. So everybody afterwards, like, what's Patrick talking about? I'll tell you in 15 years. Is he playing a game with her? Is he, the next 3 years I was working with them, she kept asking, what's the reason? What's the reason? What's the reason? But here's what the reason was, Michael. Outwork, out-improve, out-strategize. The last one is outlast. It's that simple. You know, look at you. You've outlasted your peers. All the people that you came out of your class are not living. They're not alive. You've outlasted them. And now you have a good life. You're doing what you're doing. You were able to leave the life and outlast and live. And you're doing great for yourself right now with your family, your kids, your girls, your boys. But the last one is very intimidating. Very intimidating. You can look at UFC fights. I'm a big UFC guy. And you'll watch a guy first round, kicks the other guy's tail, almost beats him. But then second round, he's gassing. Third, fourth, fifth, and he chokes him. It's over. He loses. How did I lose to this other guy? He can outlast you. So those basic fundamentals in the business is somebody may be watching this saying, I'm a pretty hard worker. Yeah, but you don't read books and you're not improving yourself. Yeah, I read a lot of books. Yeah, but you don't have the right strategies. Yeah, but I have all the right strategies. Yeah, but you haven't lasted a long time yet. You've only been doing this for 6 months or a year or 2 years. This takes a minute. Listen, the game of YouTube is very annoying. It's very hard. You'll have a lot of success. All of a sudden, you'll flatline. And what am I doing wrong? And what do I do with this part? And it's very, very frustrating. Business is the same way. Marriage is the same way. Parenting is the same way. Our health, staying in shape, diet is the same way. So if you can be patiently aggressive, that has got to be one of the most intimidating qualities of an opponent. If your opponent is more patiently aggressive than you, how do you beat this person? You eventually suffocate your competitors, because your competitors sit there and say, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm just not willing to go at the pace that he's going. Like this new documentary just came out. I don't know if you've seen it, about the Redeem Team. You know, the whole, when they won the, Olympics, the basketball players. It's a very good documentary. There's a scene where, the LeBron, Carmelo, Dwayne Wade, they go to the Olympics, they lose, they get bronze. And it's like, wait a minute, how are they losing? These are NBA players. How do you lose? You're supposed to win the Olympic team. Second team comes around, they call it the Redeem Team. And Coach K calls Kobe to come. And Kobe says, yeah, I'll join you guys. I'm sick and tired of seeing you guys lose. Kobe shows up to the team. When Kobe shows up to the team, LeBron's game changed after the Olympics. There's a part when Carmelo Anthony, who won the national championship at Syracuse, he's supposed to be like the next superstar. I think he's the 6th all-time scorer in the history of the NBA. 6th or 7th all-time scorer in the history of the NBA. But he comes in and they say, yeah, when Kobe showed up and Kobe started doing trainings and he was at the gym at 4:30. Next thing you know, everybody's going to the gym at 4:30. I took Kobe and everybody, I ain't coming in at 4:30. I'll come at 6:30. I ain't coming at 4:30. Guess what? 20 years later, the only guy on that team who was a superstar that never won a championship is Carmelo Anthony. He didn't want to show up at 4:30, and Kobe did. Kobe's got 5. LeBron's got 4. Dwayne Wade's got 3. A bunch of the other guys got 1, 2, 3. Carmelo Anthony doesn't even have 1. He has 0. The outlasting part of the business, it's so annoying, intimidating, frustrating, because Kobe suffocated his competitors. So did Michael. So is Brady. So are the great ones. And in the world of business, it's the same rules apply.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And too, when you go back to Kobe, when I was recruited out of prison to speak to athletes about the dangers of gambling, 1996 was the first rookie season for Kobe. And that was the first class I spoke to. And I sat with Kobe for about 2 or 3 hours at that point. He was so interesting, so committed. I said, this is my guy from that point on. I loved everything about him. But you're right. First guy in the gym, last guy to leave. A talent and determination, and he did outlast everybody. So sad what happened in the end, but what a great guy. You know, and I agree with everything that you said, Patrick. And I think you're going to outlast everybody. You know, when you talk about that list of Fortune magazine, out of the 50, 48 of them are dead. And these were all my contemporaries. 48 are dead. Number 49 is still in prison. I think he's 78 years old. I don't know if he'll ever make it out. And I'm the only one alive and free out of the list of 50. You know, look, you don't plan these things, but, you know, you're right. When you outlast everybody and you're the last man standing in whatever it is that you do, you got a good shot to be ahead of everybody and be successful. I know that that's your strategy, no doubt about it. Let me ask you, what else are you looking to acquire right now? I mean, I've been to Valuetainment. It's an amazing spot and office. You got so many great things going on there. What else are you looking to do in the near future?
We are right now speaking with, this is the first time I'm talking about it publicly. We're speaking right now to multiple big magazines that we want to acquire to bring them in-house. I think when it comes down to controlling the narrative, you need media. You need to present your argument and find the audience. And the audience who agrees with you finds you. And the audience that doesn't agree with you, who watches you, can hopefully be converted and persuaded to say, I kind of like the way you guys think. There's an element of baptism and conversion as well. So we're looking at multiple magazines right now that's available out there. We just launched a new app called Maniac, which for me, for the longest time when I would deal with lawyers, one time I talked to this one lawyer for 7 minutes. He billed me for 30 minutes. And I called him. I said, why are you billing me for 30 minutes? He says, well, you charge the fees up. I said, what do you mean? Minutes roll up. I said, 7 minutes is 30 minutes. He said, yeah. I said, I don't believe in that. I'm not cool with that. He says, well, I'm billing you for 30 minutes. Anyways, we worked it out, but I sat there and I said, what are you worth per minute? Charge me by the minute. He said, nobody as a lawyer charges by the minute. And I said, what if there was a software or an app that I can FaceTime you and pay by the minute? Hence, do you have a minute to connect? Let's Connect. That's Connect, Minnect. So we launched Connect. First month, we had 30,000 downloads to the point where Google contacted us saying, hey, it's one of the hottest, Apple apps that's come out. And now we're working with them. We paid out, I don't know, nearly $500,000 of commissions to experts and influencers who are having conversations with others. And they're doing a FaceTime like this. Like imagine doing a FaceTime like this, but somebody's paying you a minute for 15-minute FaceTime with you. Or they're sending you a text and you respond back with a video and you're helping them out. So we launched Maniac. That app is doing very well. But we're going to be around the media space. We just made an offer on an 11-acre land that we want to build our campus in to be able to house 1,000 employees. We don't fit in this building anymore. The next time you come here, you won't recognize it because people are on top of each other. We just opened up another building that I bought that we're turning into a comedy club / cigar lounge with the theme of Godfather and dark black painted with pool table inside. And, hostess comes in, grabs you a Monte Cristo, whatever kind of cigar you want while you're watching sports or we're watching a debate or we're watching UFC fight, and there's going to be a gym in the back, and, you're going to be able to come and watch some live podcasts, not only live on YouTube or different platforms, but live with 300 other people. And we're getting a liquor license and a cigar license. So you're sitting there watching, let's just say you and I and a couple other people on the podcast together. There's another 300 people in front of us watching us do the podcast. So we're building that up. That's already been done. The only thing we're waiting right now for the fiber to go on there. We're just excited. We're just excited about the next phase of what we're doing, but it'll be predominantly around the media side. We're doing documentaries, kind of like the Mafia States of America that we did. We're doing movies, we're doing shows, we're doing a bunch of different things. And that's what we'll be doing for the next 40 years.
And you have it planned out for 40 years, right?
Yes.
Well, when you do this cigar lounge, you're gonna sell wine and beer?
Yes. Matter of fact, we'll put your wine in there too.
Franzese wine. I'll come and promote it for you, without a doubt. We have cigars and wine. What better can you be?
We could even do a live event with people watching a live podcast, and we'll sell tickets, and folks can be trying the wine while we're doing a podcast.
All right, I'm in, Patrick. That's a handshake on that through the internet. Let me ask you this. People ask me all the time, Michael, what 2 things can you tell young people to help them in their young life? And I say to them, there's 2 things that are very, very important. Number 1, In this world, we are who we hang out with. The people you associate with, you're going to be judged by the people that you hang with. And of course, they're going to influence you one way or another. Secondly, who you are accountable to in life is going to direct the path that you move on. And I tell them that if you can surround yourself with the right people, and I'm not talking only business-wise, I'm talking about in life, surround yourself with the right people and be accountable to the right people in life. And I always go back, I say, look, when I was in that life, I was accountable to my oath.
I was accountable to my boss. As a result, I got involved in criminal activity and paid the consequences. Now, today, I'm accountable to God first. Obviously, my wife, my children, people that rely on me, want to see me do well, so I follow a straighter path. You know, this is what I tell young people all the time. And as you know, I go into prisons and juvenile halls, and we try to educate these young people, get them on the right track. Do you agree with that? Do you have anything to add to that? What's your advice for not only young people, but people in general, you know, to do well in life?
I fully agree with that part. You know, for me, everything is about getting my philosophies to be clear in life. And as I'm getting older, there's different things I like. I want to get very clear about how to parent today. I want to be very clear about my investment philosophy. I've had it for 20 years, but it changes when you're investing 10 grand versus 100 grand versus, you know, a million versus 10 million versus 100 million. Your philosophy changes as the numbers change. I remember years ago, my dad would say, Patrick, you're so lazy. You're so lazy. You're so lazy. Why are you so lazy? And I sat there, I'm like, why am I so lazy? I mean, maybe I am really lazy, but why am I lazy? I had a 1.8 GPA in high school. I aced math and calculus, but I didn't like anything else. So I didn't have the tolerance for it, but I never missed a day in school. And I had relationships with my teachers. They loved my jokes. I entertained them. I was good with everybody. I got along with the gangsters. I got along with the athletes. I got along with the straight A guys. I got along with everybody. So, you know, when I got out, and I'm sitting around, I'm like, I'm always selling, I'm working, I'm making money, but there's a lot of things that I have no tolerance for. So I joined the military, I get out. Finally, I go and study. I said, why are people lazy? And I realized, based on what I studied, anytime you and I are bored, we become lazy. What does this mean? If you watch a boring movie, what's the first thing that happens to us? We fall asleep. Okay. So if we live a boring life, we are lazy. If we have an exciting life, we're not lazy. For example, if an earthquake happens, all of a sudden we become very excited and there's no way we're bored. You know, when a hurricane was coming to Florida, I promise you, nobody was bored. Everybody was fired up, right? When 9/11 happened, when crisis happens, we're all of a sudden alert. So sometimes when our life is not feel like, there's that one scene from the movie that you're seeing going viral on TikTok where the guy says, he shows a video about his wife. He says, when people ask me why I married my wife, and you hear this voice from the movie that says, I don't want peace. I want chaos. I want problems. Like to say, like, my wife is problematic, right? And it's funny and it goes viral. But I realized we're so afraid of problems. I want new problems in my life. I used to be afraid of paying taxes. And then I'm like, you know what? Why are you so afraid of paying taxes? Maybe I want to pay $100,000 in taxes. That's a pretty cool problem. That's a new problem. I've never had that problem before. What would have happened if I'm paying $1 million in taxes in a year? Oh my God. I want new problems. I want new issues that I have to overcome and learn to get better at. So all of those things you said, I agree with. But 3 Sundays ago, we're working on a book right now that we're publishing with Penguin. It's a business book that I'm very, very excited about around writing a business plan, because most business plan books, quite frankly, suck and they're too technical and the average person can't write it. And it's so logical that 2-3 chapters in, you fall asleep. And the average person who writes a business plan or their goal setting in December, they never look at their business plan again after the month of February. It's just a wish list. It's not a business plan. So we sat down and we turned it into science. And I said, okay, you know, when it comes down to leadership development, you can't develop other people into leaders if you are not working on developing yourself into a leader. So I finally created a business model for myself, a strategy model for myself on how to develop leaders. And it's very simple. This is to answer your question for you. In every society, in every company, in every church, in every sports team, in any family, you have bad citizens, you have reliable citizens, and you have impactful citizens. A bad citizen doesn't keep their word, doesn't do anything. We already know what a bad citizen is always in need, is always creating problems, is negative. So let's not even focus on bad citizens because everybody knows what a bad citizen is. But we have the reliable citizen, which great communities have a lot of, and we have impactful citizens that create, positive impact. So let's look at the ones at the bottom, which is the reliable citizen. Reliable citizen is typically a person that's got two things. One, they have a very strong character. So a strong character isn't just cheating, stealing, lying. We're not just talking about that. A strong character is they get up in the morning, they take care of their family, they go to work, they pay their bills, they raise their kids, they spend time with their kids, they raise good kids, they do good with their marriage, they go to church or they pay their taxes, they're following the rules, they're following the guidelines. If they tell you they're going to do something on the 20th, they get back. If they tell you they're going to call you at 3, they do. If they tell you, it's just a good character person, right? But that's not enough to do something big with your life. But you are a reliable citizen. So now the market pays more if you're a reliable citizen. You have one other thing. If you just are a strong character person, market's not going to pay you a lot. There's value in it as a friendship, as a citizen, but not value in the way you get paid. To get paid a little bit more, you need a hard skill. So what's a hard skill? Learning how to code, learning how to edit, learning how to sell, learning how to negotiate, learning how to, go out there and cut clips or cinematography or do whatever you're doing. There's a hard skill. So if you have strong character and you have hard skills, the market's going to pay you good eventually, because those two are very, very hard to find. And the more you have people like this in a society, everybody wins. If it's in a sports team, guy comes to practice and he's a good free throw shooter and good defender, it's a good citizen. If it's in a church, a person comes to church every Sunday or Saturday, they do their part, they give their tithing, and they contribute to church by going out there doing X, Y, Z. When it comes down to a sport, they got a certain hard skill, they contribute. It's a good citizen. The impactful citizen at the top is 2 additional qualities. And this is purely from my experience. Typically, if a person has strong character and hard skills, they will always have a cap. They'll become an executive, but they'll have a cap. They'll become a director, but they'll have a cap. They'll become a good salesperson, but they'll have a cap. The ones that go to the next level where you and I remember when we walk away from them is a completely different quality. And by the way, this is one that's for you, you're like a 10 in this area. It's soft skills. Every company I go to, every organization I go to that knows how to have the tough conversations or knows how to get by tough times, there's typically somebody that has soft skills, that knows how to talk to investors, that knows how to talk to executives, to low-level employees, to a director, to a partner, to lawyers, to accountants. And they know how to communicate with everybody because they have soft skills and they don't offend. They don't hurt their ego. They don't upset them. They bring people together. There is soft skills, and soft skills make for good coaches. Coaches are very good at bringing people together. They're able to deliver tough news. They're able to deliver hard news that you don't want to hear. So soft skill market pays very well. And then last but not least is you got strong character, you got hard skills, you got soft skills. And then the last one is the magical one. Almost anybody that does anything big that we read about, they've had moments in their lives where they had a paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift to me is different for everybody. I'll give you a couple of my life. So paradigm shift is, my parents are arguing when we're kids. My mother's a communist. My dad's an imperialist. And my mother would say, rich people are greedy. That's why we don't like rich people in the family. My dad says, poor people are lazy. And I'm in the middle. I'm like, who's right? Are rich people greedy or poor people lazy? So I grew up not liking rich people, and I grew up not respecting poor people. So I'm very confused. So who do you sit there and kind of follow? Until I realized some poor people are poor, but they're not lazy. And some rich people are, greedy, but not all of them. There's a lot of rich people that are most rich people became rich by giving a lot. And there's a lot of poor people that are poor, but it's not a big percentage. Some of them are poor because bad habits, or they just didn't increase their market value. But I ended up being right in the middle. I remember I was 14 years old. I came home one day and my teacher's like, here's what it is to be a Democrat. Here's what it is to be a Republican. Here's what it is to be this. So I came home. I said, Mom, today they talk about politics. What are we? Are we Democrats or Republicans? And my mom said, son, we're Democrats. I said, okay, awesome. Why are we Democrats? Because Democrats are for the poor and Republicans are for the rich. And innocently, I tell my mom, I said, you know what, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a Republican. And she says, what do you mean? I said, I want to be rich. I want to have money because I hate being poor. I didn't understand. pro-life, pro-choice, Second Amendment free. All I meant is that was a paradigm shift. I don't want to be a Democrat because I don't want to be poor. I didn't understand it's Obama, it's Trump, it's this. Nope, it was very innocent, paradigm shift. I remember one time I'm in a family gathering in Upland, and this man named Luther Al-Khasseh, he was the most successful person we had in our family, entrepreneur. He's living in this 7,200 square foot home, neighbors with Snoop Dogg, beautiful backyard, cul-de-sac, basketball court, swimming pool, all this stuff. I'm going into his kitchen, and he would always make food for everybody. He was friends with Al Gore. We would play pool, and I would watch how he was with his kids. He just passed away 2 years ago. And I would watch him with his kids. And every time I saw him on Sunday, this is what he would do. He says, so let me ask you guys a question. What makes you think Jesus is real? Dad, don't start this again. Yeah, what makes you, maybe Jesus is fake. Well, how do you know for a fact? Dad, it's been documented everywhere. You're a Christian. Why are you starting a fight between all of us? And he would steer the pot all the time. He would always steer the pot. You know, and then the kids, 4 kids would all debate loud, back and forth, back and forth. I sat there as a kid. I said, you know what? One day I'm going to have my kids debate as well because I see what he's doing. He's making everybody sharper because they're learning how to debate with each other. We can go back and find all these special moments that we have paradigm shift. But sometimes if you have character, hard skills, soft skills, and you've plateaued in life, you almost need to intentionally create a paradigm shift for yourself to get to the next level. So when you're talking about, you know, who you hang out with and who you're accountable to, I 100% agree with that. But then I would add the other 4 things to it to really, if you want to take life to the next level and you've been plateaued, you got a few moves to it. And if you do it right, it's a lot of new experiences that come out of nowhere.
Well, I hope people listen to that because that's extremely valuable information. I want to run this one thing by you also. You know, when I was a young soldier in that life, I had a capo regime that I had to report to. And I was sitting with another soldier, and we were talking about him. You know, guys talk about, you know, whatever. And one guy said to me, well, you know, he's our leader. And I said, he's not my leader. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, he's not my leader. I said, he's my boss. I got to listen to him. I got to follow him, but he's not my leader. I said, I wouldn't follow him into battle if I didn't have to. I don't trust him. I don't think he's that kind of guy. And he said to me, well, I don't understand. A leader or a boss, they're the same thing. I said, no, they're not. I said, a boss is a boss. He's in management. He tells you what to do. Who knows how he got that position? He might have been assigned, might have stole it, might have been, you know, any other way that he got it. I said, to me, a leader is only a leader when somebody willingly wants to follow them, when they have that charisma, that's something about them that makes you want to follow them. And you don't have to be a boss. You could be an everyday guy. You could be working anywhere. But when you have that leadership quality, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, the definition of leadership for me is 2 things. One is the example you set, but that's not enough. I saw so many great people that set a great example, but people don't duplicate them. So I'm like, okay, so if example isn't enough, what else do I need? Is getting people to do things they wouldn't do on their own. And that takes persuasion. That takes, you know, taking different angles at getting somebody to buy in. That takes, you know, sometimes some people you can present it to them from, you know, this angle. Hey, I'm going to sell the vision. Sometimes it's relationship. I got to go break bread with them. Sometimes you got to go meet their spouse and get close because the wife, when he gets home, says, no, babe, you shouldn't do this. And listen. And then when you win her over, then it's so much easier to work with him. But so many different ways. But the ability to get people to do things that they wouldn't do on their own, to me, for the longest time, I was doing part 1, but I wasn't duplicating any leaders. When I understood part 2, things change very quickly. But I would fully agree with you that when people choose to follow you, you're a leader. When people are forced to follow you, you're a form of a dictator.
Or a boss, right?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect time to switch gears a little bit. And I don't want to get into politics, but I do want to get into government a little bit. You know, I wrote a book, Mafia, Democracy, and you wrote a very nice blurb about it. Thank you very much. Let me ask you this. You know, when my publisher, I don't know if you know the story, but after I wrote the business book, they said to me, they want me to write another book. It was HarperCollins. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? They said, well, let's do politics. And I thought about it a little bit, and I started looking at the government. I said, well, the government is operating like the mob, in my opinion. And I told them how. They said, Michael, that's the book. He said, what do you want to call it? Top of my head, Mafia Democracy, because that's what I'm seeing. I go home. They give me a nice advance, right? I start to write the book. I get into it about 3-4 chapters, and I look at Cammie, my wife, and I say, Cam, why am I doing this? I have no enemies in the government, at least none that I know of at this point in time. Everything is nice in our life. I said, I'm writing stuff here that's too true. People are going to get upset with me. What do I need it for? I take it, I go back to my publisher, I give him back the advance. I say, I'm not writing this. Cut to 6 years later, I felt an obligation and a responsibility to write this book, Patrick, because I'm so concerned about the future of this country. Not so much for me. I'm 71 years old, not much more they can do to me. But my kids, my grandchildren, your kids, I am really deeply concerned with the system, the operation of the government, the way it appears today. And it's not only about Democrats, Republicans, independents. Obviously, I lean to the right. I'm more conservative in my values and my ideology. But I just see the system just being so mafia-like, so street-like. You agree with me?
Yeah, you know, it's weird what's happening. Last year, a weird lawsuit happened that really shook me. Remington, I think it's Remington, the gun company. Is it Remington? Let me see what the company's name was. I want to say it's Remington. This gun company gets sued. Somebody used their gun and killed a family member. And the family member sued the gun manufacturer, Remington, and they had to pay $73 million.
Right.
I'm like, wait, what? For what? They didn't kill anybody. They just produced a product that another person legally bought. Why are they paying $73 million? And I said, this is not good, because all you need in lawsuit, like Roe v. Wade, is what? You need precedent. Like, you need somebody to set the tone that we can always go back and say, well, let me tell you, in this case, this is what happened in this case. And that's why in this case, we have to do the following. So then I sat there, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like to the viewer saying, Pat, you know, because I know some people are pro, some are not. I'm military, so you know where I stand. But it's kind of like saying, hey, you know, somebody drives a Toyota Corolla and hits somebody and kills them, and the family who lost the individual, the loved one, sues Toyota and blames Toyota for it. If the family can get $73 million from Remington, how much money can people get if they just sue manufacturers, or how about knife companies, or so many different things? So that opened it up. Then, you know, you go to what just happened with Alex Jones, with the comments that he made. Mm-hmm. Okay. I interviewed Alex Jones after he got canceled in Austin, and it's not an easy interview to watch, because I challenged him a lot when I said, you know, you're sensationalizing a lot, right? And we went back and forth to scene with him eating an apple when he got pissed. It's pretty funny. He was about to get up, but he has to pay out $1 billion. $1 billion. He doesn't have $1 billion. He has to pay $1 billion. But all these pharmaceutical companies, the fentanyl that these kids are addicted to, that we're one of the only countries in the world that these guys can do commercials on. In other countries, you can't do commercials on this. You have to figure out a way to find them. These guys that made billions on top of billions of dollars, they only get $300, $400, $500, $600 million fines. That's it. But an individual. So those two was concerning to me, because now you kind of like can't say what you want to say. But let me give you the flip side of it. We have an issue that's going on in Iran. And Iranians are trying to cause a revolution so Iran can have some democracy where, you know, I can go visit Iran and go to the streets where I grew up in. Well, I had a panel last week of Iranians on the podcast to talk about the events in Iran. One of the girls I brought up to the podcast is a actress who's very well-known actress, who's Iranian, who on the podcast said, I'm all left. I'm LGBTQ. I'm Black Lives Matter. You know, no second amendment. I'm this. And she just openly said it. Pro-choice, pro this. I said, okay, cool. So she set the tone for everybody, the viewers watching. They know where she stands. And then I asked the question. I said, so let me ask you this. In Iran, how do the people, women, these brave women, these people that are protesting, the youth that's protesting, how do you have the power to go up against the government? Do you do it in a peaceful protest? Or do they need to get violent? And she's like, no, it can't be peaceful. You can't throw the government away if it's peaceful. I said, oh, really? She says, yes. I said, so how can the average person help? And the conversation of weapons comes up. And she says, these people need weapons to go up against the government. And I said, interesting. So you're pro-Second Amendment. Oh, got it. Huh. Isn't it weird how we learned through Iran that we need guns for the American people so the government can one day come and wake us up? It's not like we're buying guns because we want to do anything, but we're buying it because they know you can't just go and ram through someone's door because that person's protected themselves. And the people are protected together where we, the people, cannot be bullied. Where something like Iran can't happen to us. Well, that'll never happen to America. Really? America's only 240, 50, 60 years old. You know how old Iran was? Iran was a few thousand years old. Go to US and you'll go to DC and they'll say, this building has been standing here for 220 years. Go to Iran and get a tour and see what they'll say. This building's been here for 2,500 years. How many years? 2,500 years. That's Iran. Many empires a lot longer than US fell. So what's going on in America is bad ideas are getting traction because people with good ideas are being quiet. And when people with good ideas who are quiet because they don't want to have an argument, sometimes when you know the argument where it's like, if you argue with an idiot, there's two idiots. You know, the whole saying, like, if you're seen arguing with two idiots, there's two idiots. Never be seen arguing with an idiot, because if somebody sees you arguing with an idiot, they're going to say you're the second idiot. Okay, fine. So it's more of a passive position to take. If somebody who's an idiot says things to you, you don't need to debate them. That may have worked pre-social media, but today for social media, what that philosophy is doing, Michael, it's getting people to think that the idiot won because the other guy didn't say anything. Well, what do you mean? Well, there's too many people that got great arguments who are not saying anything because they're afraid. I'd much rather not just say anything because I don't want to argue with these guys. So all of a sudden, a person like AOC's got 14 million followers on Twitter, and 14 million followers on Twitter means she knows what she's talking about more than somebody who's got 40,000 followers. So now we're living in an era where to become a celebrity, if you complain, if you bitch, you blame, the algorithms help you go viral. Make a video and bitch and complain and blame your parents, blame anybody, and see what happens. The hero-making machine is gone in America. It's the victim-making machine. We're not about looking for heroes. Heroes used to be, my God, look at this person, the life of the rich and famous. Look at this person, he made it to the top of business. Look at this person, he made it to the top of whatever. Today it's poor this person, poor that person, poor this person. I have a hard time with that. I have a very hard time with that word, the victimization. So, you know, I think more and more people, Michael, are starting to realize bad policies have consequences. Bad strategies have consequences. Bad ideas have consequences. And now it's directly impacting them. You look at the market with inflation, the average person's lost 25% of their 401k since Biden became president. What do you mean? The average person's lost? That means if I'm 64 years old, I was about to retire next year, I had $700,000 in my retirement portfolio, and say I still had it in equities because I don't know what I'm doing and I didn't move my money out. That 700,000 is officially $510,000. What are we talking about here? Now I got to work till 71 years old. I can't retire. I still need to have a job at Walmart and drive Uber at night. And I'm 65 years old. I'm supposed to retire at 65. So, and then we're seeing what's going on with inflation, with interest rates. Powell is talking about they're going to have to keep increasing the interest rates to bring inflation down to 2%. And Bloomberg just announced today saying 100% next year it's going to be recession. We all know recession, they'll announce it a day after midterms. But we know we're in recession right now. Right. And we know all the politics that's being played. So, you know, I think for the most part, we can have a little bit of a flaw in a blind spot of groupthink, where it's like, oh, nobody's arguing. Okay, yeah, me too. Okay, all right. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, I'm not doing this. You know, I also thought it didn't make sense. I'm sorry, I'm also not doing it. 3 other people, yeah, I'm also not, I'm with them. Now there is common sense. I think we're entering the phase where people are starting to realize, yeah, all this stuff you said, what is a woman? You're degrading women. And as a feminist who was fighting for women, you just hurt women by not being able to answer what is a woman. Man, what a dumb approach to take. Shit, it's backfiring. Guys, what do we do now? Or defunding the police. No, we never said it. They said it. Why would we ever defund the police? So again, all these bad ideas, they get exposed. At first, it sounds like a noble idea. Black Lives Matter, $73 million they take in, but the money never made to the people, and the founders of Black Lives Matter are being indicted. And the lady Osborne says, yeah, I wish we can get our money back. We gave them $900,000, but they were swearing by Black Lives Matter and nobody talking about it. So bad ideas get exposed. Unfortunately, sometimes they get exposed too late at the cost. Some people have paid a price for being convinced for bad ideas. I'll wrap up with this and I'll just turn it over to you for whatever other topic you want to bring up. I'm holding my Vault conference. You've been to a Vault conference before. I had you on, I think, 4 years ago or something. It was in Dallas. This time we did it in Miami. And one of the nights, the first night, everybody goes home, everybody goes to their room and they have to do homework with 83 questions. And they come the next day and talk about, okay, what kind of a change are you making leaving this place? So we got a couple thousand people at the conference this year. We got Robert Kiyosaki, Kevin Connolly, Chaz Palminteri is doing the one-man show Bronx. That's a great event. So I start the morning. So what happened last night? Tell me this. What big decision are you making? This one very attractive Persian girl with her sister, probably 39, 41 years old, is sitting over there, row 7, row 8. She's going like this, and she's hesitant. So I get to this person, that person, this person. I'm talking to 20. Eventually, she just stands up. So I have to say something. I said, go for it. Give her the mic. We give her the mic. She says, my response is going to be a little bit different on what I want to do in my life. And I had a very big paradigm shift last night, and I'm making a big decision. What is it? My entire life, I've tried to compete with men to prove to them that I don't need them. I run a very successful salon. People who work for me make very good money. I make very, very good money. I'm what you would consider a millionaire. I've never been married. I've been standing on my own 2 feet, and her sister's sitting right next to her. She says, but I finally come to a conclusion. I want a husband, and I want to get married, and I'm sick of competing with men. I just want to have somebody that I can build a life with for the rest of my life. And this whole concept of equality and wanting to beat men is burning me out. Love is more important than me trying to be a feminist because it's not working. Michael, people in the audience stood up like, I couldn't even believe this is a business conference. This is not a political conference. And, you know, how many of these videos have we seen where a 65-year-old woman gets up there and says, I marched with the founder of feminist movement. Yeah, 40 years ago, 50, I marched with these guys. But it's the biggest mistake. I'm 65, I'm single, I've never had a kid. I don't have a companion, I don't have a boyfriend. And I realized this entire concept of feminism got out of hand. It started with a good reason. It got out of hand. It's so negative now. I can't go have kids now. I can't go get married. I'm having a hard time finding somebody. So again, bad policies are being exposed. Bad strategies are being exposed, unfortunately, at the cost of millions of people who fell for their trick. And they lost many, many years. But next generation of leaders are exposing them, and it's not gonna last for too long.
Well, you know what, you summed it up, and I hope you're right, Patrick. I'm hoping people are really, you know what, sometimes you got to feel the pain before you come to your senses and realize what's really going on, the hypocrisy that exists in Washington and everywhere else. So I just hope, you know, I'm an optimist like you, and I always think things can be fixed, but this is getting so out of hand. But again, the more people suffer, the less safe they feel on the streets. I know it's rough here in LA, even in Newport Beach. Every day we're hearing something about a car being robbed in Fashion Island, people breaking into stores. It's things we never heard of before. It's unbelievable. And it's these in Fashion Island, Patrick, believe it or not. You just said something. You had 2 very fascinating interviews, one with Andrew Tate. I think it was 3 hours, fascinating. Another one with Jordan Peterson. And, you know, it's amazing how these 2 men were being maligned for telling men how to be men. Something that I do in service, you know, I did it at a Good Friday service, an Easter Sunday service. I says, what it is to be a man's man in 2022. Same thing. People got up and cheered. And people think when you're teaching a man how to be a man or telling what qualities that he has, that you're demeaning women. has nothing to do with women. When you're telling men how to act like men, you're educating, you're actually benefiting women. And in today's society, you're right, they've reversed that to a point where everything is a challenge. Everything is demeaning. Everything is you pointing a finger at somebody to put somebody down. And, you know, look, as it turns out, you know, Andrew said he's been following me for a while. You gave me his number. I talked to him, and hopefully we'll get together shortly when I get to Europe. But I feel for what happened with him. I mean, not that he needs any pity. He's doing extremely well. But to shut him down like they did, you know, just because he's talking about what a man should be. Jordan Peterson was in tears when people were trying to malign him, when he's standing up for beliefs that are so accurate and so true. And it's terrible what's going on. I just hope this cancel culture, this attempt to silence people stops. I really mean it. And, you know, people got to get bold in what they believe in and say it respectfully the right way, but maybe the lights will go on and things will change in this country. I'm hoping so. Let me ask you, I want to finish with this because you have done so many interviews, can't keep up with them. And putting myself aside because I know I'll be the most interesting, what was your favorite interview of all time? Your number one favorite interview?
I mean, you know, obviously Kobe Bryant is one that's monumental that, you know, I'll never forget, you know, was in front of 6,000 people. It was the same event where I interviewed President Bush, who was there as well. But I would put Kobe there. You know, I would put a couple of these communists I interviewed. I like good debates. I like good back and forths that you sit down and you're having with them. But there's so many to list. But if I have to pick one, I'd probably put all the mob interviews, Phil Leonetti, yourself, Sammy, Frank Collada, even Oscar Goodman, which you made the introduction to Oscar in Vegas. And I'm fascinated by that. So if I put all of that in one, that's obviously, it's very, very interesting to learn more about that life. But Kobe was something else. You know, you were even talking about earlier about Kobe with your 2 to 3 hour conversation with him in '96 when you were talking to the athletes about gambling habits and all this stuff. But Kobe was very, very interesting when we interviewed him 3 years ago.
Yeah, very smart guy too. You know, it's such a shame what happened, but hey, that's life. I got to ask you this: the sit down that you put together between me and Sammy, that you engineered, you put it all together. Just give me some final thoughts. I never asked you your final thoughts on the interview. What did you come out of there thinking? What were your final thoughts on it?
You guys were the product, right? I spoke 1% of the interview. You guys are the product. The audience is coming to hear and see what you guys have to say. But, you know, I think the biggest thing is, even though you've been away from the life for as long as that you have, there is still some sort of I don't know if I want to say pride. There's still some sort of it's part of your life. It's a part of what you did when you were coming up. But from my end, watching how technical words are, the usage of words, like in a typical negotiation, you use a word here and there. In your world, one shift on how you use a word could offend the other person. And it's like, no, I'm not good with it. You have to change the word, you know, and maybe to the average person, that word means nothing, but to people from your world, that's a pretty big, you know, heavy word to use. But, you know, for both of you guys to agree to do the sit down was the first thing. I mean, I spoke on the phone with Sammy. I'm not going to do it. You and I spoke about it. I don't know if I want to do it. I think the first time I brought it up to you were my house in Dallas, if you remember. And I think you were with your brother-in-law, if I'm not mistaken. We were right by the kitchen. And we're by the pantry. And I'm like, what do you think about doing something with me, you, and Sammy? And you're like, you didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. And then for it to finally come together, where we spent 2.5 days together, Michael. We were pretty much together for 2 days in that secret location. But I don't know. I felt like, you know, how sometimes you watch a referee and you watch a great fight, and we're watching it on TV, Frazier against Ali. Well, nobody had a better seat than the referee in the middle watching that fight. I felt like I had the best seat in the house, just sitting right there watching both. And it was intense. It was entertaining. It was educational. It was insightful. It was emotional, you know, because you also have to talk about certain things that's, you know, on when you were younger. But it's going to go down as one of the coolest projects I ever worked on.
Well, I agree, and I haven't spoken to you about this, but I have some real interest in that project from some companies that want to, but we'll talk about it when we get together. There's no rush on it, obviously. But yeah, it was a fascinating experience. The good thing about it is that Sammy and I have come out of that with a mutual respect and kind of a friendship. I mean, we're not, doing a lot of things together, but we at least come out of it as friends. I don't want this to be misunderstood, but out of respect for what our former life was about, that's the way we should have come out of it. Because aside from everything else, and I never glorify the life, but there is a certain respect I have for it, and Sammy certainly does, regardless of what transpired afterwards. And I'm glad we came out of it with a mutual respect for one another, and I thank you again for putting it together. So I'm going to let you go. I know you're busy, but I do want to say something. The Maniac platform, I'm going to encourage people that are listening, go on it, look at the app. It's terrific. We're going to start to mobilize it. We kind of just tried it out. We're going to start to mobilize it and use it. I think it's a fantastic tool. Certainly for people to get to us and talk and have a meaningful conversation. So Patrick, it's all good. And I'll tell you this. You may not be president of the United States one day, but I have a feeling one of your kids are going to be. This is like a Joe Kennedy situation where you're going to put your kids forward and they're going to have a happy ending and run this country. I hope I'm around to see it.
Aside from
that would be interesting.
I can see that happening, and you just keep
doing the great things that you're doing. You're an important part of this country. You're an important part of business. You're a role model. You're a mentor. You're an entrepreneur. So many people look up to you. I've never heard a bad word said about you with all the people that know you, and that's not easy to say. The people that work for you, they love you, and you've created a small empire that's going to just continue to get big. So God bless you. I love your family and you, and we'll get together again shortly.
Feelings mutual. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Well, there you have it. Probably one of the most interesting sit-downs I've ever had. Patrick is a brilliant guy. I love his ideology. I love the way he sees things, his perception, his business acumen, just everything about him. I hope you were really paying attention. If you weren't, go back and listen to it again. He said some things that were so wise, so intelligent. You just got to listen. Great guy, great sit-down. I appreciate it, and one of my dearest friends. So hope you enjoyed it. And that's it for today. How do I always leave you? The same way. It's not going to change. Be safe. Please be safe. What's going on in this country is crazy. Be healthy. Keep yourself in shape. You want to live long? Give yourself a better shot. Stay in shape. And I mean this sincerely to all you. God bless every one of you. Be safe. Be healthy. God bless. Yes, I'll see you next time.